It's called the finance meeting together. Start it out with Tracy.
So number one on the agenda is to appoint David Linder as trustee to represent the county departments in the Wyoming County Workers' Compensation Plan. Effective September 14th. This is to replace Greg Bell, July 1st.
Motion by Supervisor Brick. Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number two, the workers' compensation budget discussion.
So this is the exhibit provided by Sound Actuarial for the budget for next year. The executive committee of the board of trustees met last Wednesday. You're welcome. And they. I can't. No, because we have to go with them. I don't want that. I can't. You can't have it because it has to be approved. Yes. You're welcome. Jim, I do. So the executive committee met on Wednesday, and they approved it to move forward to the board of trustees meeting in October. Oh, yes, you do. No, okay. Yeah, okay. So, exhibit one, that is a summary of the budget for next year. And overall, it increased 2.7%. So 2.7%, it increased over 2022's budget. This is, the budget is compiled from estimates from Triad. And then I input salary lines and contractuals. I do the biggest bulk of the budget. And then I send everything off to Sound and they give the final pieces, which is our indemnity loss, our medical loss payments, the DCCE payments, which includes legal and medical services, and then the hospital surcharge payments. They also review the estimates that I received from Triad. On exhibit 2 on the second page, then you'll see the breakdown of the participants, and it would be column 5 that you're looking at to see what the 2023 contribution is going to be. And they continue to use the tempering mechanism. They tweaked it this year. Last year it was negative 20% to a positive 7.5%. Last year it was a positive 5%. And it just goes by like the changes that would be in the, to that particular participant. So nobody is, I guess, out of whack with other participants. So they try to temper it so everybody's kind of equal with the changes. And then on column 6, you'll see that overall we're 2.7 increase. And then this will be presented to the Board of Trustees meeting in October for adoption. Then if any questions on it?
Tracy?
I do have a question.
Okay.
So Tracy, typically in the past, the hospital was a big utilizer of the workers' comp. And yet I show them having a decrease in their contribution 22 versus 23. Can you
So
explain
they
that?
do sound actuarial, they get loss runs from Triad, so they see what is still open on for claims throughout all the years. And then they look at it to see what money they're going to try to predict is going to be paid out on those claims. They also look at our experience rating also, but not like this year, so far the hospital really hasn't had like a large number of claims. So
When you say a large number, is it fewer claims than
Yes.
last year?
yes. Like currently for this year, we have 61 claims as of October, as of August 12th, is when they ran the reports for me. And that's overall for all the participants. But we've really kind of gone like a couple of months where we've only had like maybe 3 or 4 claims from the hospital. It's nothing to get a claim every week from the hospital.
Okay,
And I can get like further details from Sound. And if you want, like prior to the Board of Trustees meeting, that they can give like a better breakdown of that.
well, I was just curious, because the other thing is, when I've looked at these in the past, the 2 main contributors were the hospital and county highway.
Yeah,
And county highway is also showing,
County highway, we haven't had, and we didn't have any new claims.
this year.
Correct, there was one and it was controverted.
Okay, but no new claims this year,
Not this year, no. We still have active claims,
of course,
right, from past, but
prior years.
no new claims this year.
Isn't that unusual?
Well, maybe.
New management.
And, you know, if they're doing more, like safety training would have, yeah, because I know that Devin is, a big proponent of that. So I am a part of the Empire State Safety Association, which I think started when Dixie was still here. And, I think it was formed in 2018 throughout the state. And Devin gets the same emails because my department pays for the, what would you call it, the dues, the yearly dues for it. But I pay for multiple members. So it would include Devin also. And we get like weekly safety brief emails. And I know he shares them with his staff down there. They do like weekly toolbox talks, and he shares it also with the other town and supervisors, or the highway supervisors, superintendents, and the village DPWs. And I also did that training back in April that I hosted for the village DPWs and the town superintendents and all of their employees.
So given that both the hospital and county highway are showing negative changes in their allocation based on their, the number of
loss,
claims,
yeah.
the loss and experience, what do you attribute this 2.7 increase to?
So it would be across the board. It would look at all of the entities, all the participants within the pool. At the schools kind of have a high claim usage. And quite honestly, public safety does. The changes in the laws down there, they have to do with inmates. They have unruly inmates, and I think right now we have 4 or 5 207C claims. Right, I have 2 COs who just recently on light duty. But just this year, we had 3 shoulder surgeries.
And where do I find that here? Is that under
Yeah,
government?
I don't share the departmental breakdown until the board of trustees meeting. So, but I can give you that, but they had an increase this year.
Okay,
Mhm. But if you look at on the second page,
yes,
towards the bottom. So highway is listed separately on here. They're the third one down, the county highway. But the Wyden County Government Administration, they are listed the third one from the bottom.
what does that comprise?
And so that would comprise all the other departments within the county, except for county highway. They're listed separate,
Including public safety?
including public safety.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
so you can see the 2022 contribution limited in the first column
right,
is 297,947. And then the projection, the contribution for next year in the proposed budget is $320,293.
okay. And when is the meeting? October 4th?
It's right on my agenda. It is October 4th at 9 AM prior to the start of the finance meeting.
Okay.
Any other questions? And then number 4. This is a professional service contract to renew our disability insurance policy with WellPoint. And the effective date of this is October 1st of this year through September 30th of 2023. Our rates have stayed the same. We had a 2-year contract prior to this. So our CSEA general group is $13.70 per employee per month, and county and hospital management is $9.40 per employee per month. And the CSEA supervisory unit is $3.90 per female per month and $1.85 per male.
Question on that? Motion? Supervisor Kenny? Discussion? Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Anything else for Tracy? Or you have anything else?
No.
Motion after. No. Any questions for Tracy?
No more rodent problems that you're,
It's not yet, but the weather might be changing, right? But no, not yet. Thank you.
Yeah, Bill, you're up.
All right.
Before you begin, Bill.
Yep.
Obviously, we had some difficulties with the sound system at the fair.
Yep.
I've got one in my garage. It's in a box with 2 speakers, karaoke. I'm hopeful that you can resolve that issue next time we go there.
So for this time, the main amplifier, if you will, died. So we just have to get a new unit. And that system is, I think, 16 or 17 years old. I know it's bought with public safety money, so I'm looking into a new solution now. So,
And maybe some redundancy.
so yeah, redundancy, as far as if that piece is concerned, we would have to have just a second unit. Yeah.
I mean, I can bring that whole box next year. It'll fit in my back seat. Stands and everything. Amplifier.
So I know, I was just looking at the chairwoman. to
We
see if
used it at my daughter's wedding at the village of Wyoming. I had Paul there and it
Oh, gotcha.
worked out terrific.
That's very generous of you, Supervisor Lord, and Bill and I had a meeting with Mr. Kale. And also, I have talked with Mike Roach, who's also looking into what they might have there at the fair. It's another alternative, but we've had a lot of discussions.
That's good.
Yeah.
We need to fix that.
Yeah,
I mean-
we had a post-mortem meeting.
Yeah. Yep.
I think I'm still missing some hearing out of my ear from
Yeah.
when I got whacked by.
Well, that's what happened. When it went.
Right.
I thought I stepped on the wrong cord or something.
I just think we need to thank Bill
No,
for trying and setting it up, because we out of whim sometimes say, well, we'll have a meeting here and we'll have a meeting there. We expect our IT guys just to drop everything and move us and set us up. So,
And usually they're successful.
yes,
and we did test the system days before and it was good. It was also quiet in the lane, I think. You know, I think honestly that system just had enough and, you know, breathed its last breath, so. But yeah, it worked flawlessly the few days before when we set it up, but again, I mean, the equipment is old and honestly, up until this point, was never even thought of to get a replacement system. It's just so many other things going on.
So you're willing to go on record then and give us your assurance that next year smooth sailing?
Should be, I mean, new system, hopefully it should be good, and honestly too, if whatever system I get, it'd be nice to have some training. I'm not a huge audio guy, you know, with mixers and all that on the box,
Piece of cake.
but nonetheless. And not just training for me, but my entire staff, just because, so.
Yeah, there's another problem. You do the other end, we gotta go.
Well, I mean, I don't mind, the seating was fine. The other end is typically, you know, we're getting a lot of noise from the horse barn and the horses, you know. So the seating was fine there. I had no issues with that. It was just,
You know, when the garage door is open and they're announcing the horse show, that's what you hear.
exactly,
So when we were there a few days prior and we noticed that wall, because remember the bathrooms came right through,
right.
we thought, ooh, let's try it the other end again. But then when we had a side conversation with Mike, we learned, well, we figured it out while we were there, that the bathrooms don't have a ceiling. So Mike was thinking maybe they could put bathroom ceilings and that would cut down even further on that sound. But, you know, we were looking at the exhaust fan up above, which can be shut off, but, you know, you've been there, it's a crapshoot as to whether or not it's gonna be sweltering that day
Sure.
or raining that day, you know, you just don't know. So when we saw all of those things, we thought, let's try it at the other end of the building again and see if we get any better, but it was just,
Although I don't know if that would have address the sound system issue.
It would never address that because we could not have foreseen that.
But I
it's gonna
think,
die.
yeah, I didn't have no problem with where we were seated. It's actually an improvement over,
If I had a crystal
Being in the
ball,
other-
it would have been absolutely perfect, but I don't have a crystal ball, so we did the best we could.
All right,
I'll donate.
well, lesson learned, and we'll get working on it again. Get back to the agenda then. So, your number one, Bill.
Yep, so number one is another extension for the ACS contract. This would put us through the end of the year, which hopefully is enough time to possibly wrap things up. With that being said, you know, we talked about the struggles that we've had converting old data, and we're looking into solutions of that right now. I don't have concrete anything because I'm waiting on quotes and possibilities at this point, but hopefully gonna have news very soon for all that stuff, on both sides, for ACS and news, so.
Sure. Motion is for the record. Any questions on this? All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Two, page two.
So number two is for Tyler Technologies or Munis. This is additional implementation hours for things that we're still having them help us with. You know, lots of pieces, I guess you could say. So this is just more implementation, or it's not support's the wrong word, but more of their people's time help us implement the product.
We're going to do that.
No, one silver lining that I saw in all this is when I was, you know, working on the conversion of the HR data. You know, we've been, you know, in the project as a whole, on the financial side, we kept stealing hours out of the future bill to use, you know, and this is the reason, and this is the, you know, the problem with doing some things like this, but either way, we're still over on hours of how much we needed. But the conversion cost for HR is still built in the contract, and we have not manipulated those hours yet, so. When that comes, you know,
They gave us 4 hours and was allotted because they weren't here.
yeah, so,
Takes one time.
yeah, I don't remember the amount of hours off the top of my head, but that was addressed last year, when I first came on, and they did give us more hours, but those are long gone.
Any more questions on this?
Move it.
Where's your Favor?
I,
Opposed? Here.
So can we actually appropriate money to pay for those two things? What avenue? So whenever we do these increases to the contracts, we really should have the money go with it.
The appropriation.
$88,400. So can we do it?
Not in this project, no.
So can we do an appropriation to, you ready, Cheryl?
Yeah.
12,168.54301 professional services. 88,400. And if it's okay with everyone, like I said, these are the ones we gotta use anyway, we've gotta pay for this anyway. So that would be with Robert, you're ready? 12,168,06.44089.0. What's that, Jim? Recovery, federal aid, other recovery.
Mr. Chairman, just so we're all clear, the conversion that Bill and I are partnering on to recapture and preserve the ACS data, we're not there yet. Nor do we really have a firm handle on what it's going to cost. We know it's probably going to cost more than we have set aside. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that's not included in what we're talking about here today. And we do not have final resolution on the preservation of that data. The conversion and preservation of that data, which is absolutely essential to go forward.
And for those that don't know what Dan's talking about, all the history that's in the ECS from Bradford, for the past employees,
Since the 70s.
is in ACS. When ACS is gone, that'll be gone unless we pull it out of there. And
I need that for pensions, benefits, retirement, promotions, and everything. And you can't, and that's for every employee on the county side, the hospital side, and every employee who ever worked at either one of those places, as well as any employee who ever worked in a town, or village, or school district in the county. So that's what we're talking about.
The electronic roster records need to follow, yeah.
And so other than manually punching in the units, one by one, which will take years. Bill's working on trying to get a conversion, which is going to be above and beyond the cost. So, and that's not hard of us. So,
Perfect. Yep. And there might be different options, but that's what we're trying to, we're just waiting on ACS, and Tyler to, and pull all the information, then I can loop Dan and his team in and say, here are our options. Start it all.
because our ultimate goal is at the end of the year to be done with ACS.
Bill, do they have to build a program? Do they have to build a program to do the conversion?
So no, like, when we talk actual conversion with Tyler, basically, what we do is we pay ACS for an export of all our data, and we hand that over to Tyler, and then in the past, it's been 8 to 10 weeks for them to turn that around and implement it in their own system. So,
I'm not optimistic that we're going to be done by January. I'm hopeful, but not optimistic.
Mr. Negativity.
Well, we didn't plan it. And it's
I
September,
know.
so
Somebody had a plan to begin with.
I believe that probably did it.
Why?
So. All right, so what we got on the table is, we need to appropriate $88,400. A motion by Supervisor May. Any more questions on this?
I had thought that we had already fully utilized our ARPA funds. No,
No, but on a side note with the ARPA funds, I did talk to, or I asked Cheryl to contact Jim Pierce about the micro loan money. And Jim shared with me an email that he sent out regarding, withdrawing that request, so
Right.
for that reason.
right.
Okay. Any more questions?
So is that the funds that you're using, the 200,000 ARPA funds,
It's back in the kitty again.
right, for this appropriation? Okay,
Any more questions? A motion by Supervisor May for $88,400 appropriation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Anything else, Joe?
I have one more FYI. So earlier in the year, the state had talked about paying for like an advanced antivirus called EDR And that has gone through. We don't have it yet. They're working on rolling it out. I just filled out a survey for, what we would need to cover us in the hospital, things like that. But hopefully their plan is to roll it out in 2023. With that being said, that was one of the check boxes we were missing for cybersecurity insurance this year. And the major reason is cost, just like us not having multi-factor authentication the previous year. With all those things, they're very expensive, but with the state rolling this out, their plan is to do this, ongoing, but the initial contract is at least for 3 years. So it's not like it'll go away after a year, which is great, we can implement the system and have it around for a while and really test the product, so, and there's no cost to us, state's funding it 100%, so just some good news there, have a better product.
What's it called, Phil?
The product itself is called CrowdStrike, and it's an EDR. And CrowdStrike, one more thing, it's probably one of the leading vendors. It's not like they chose the cheapest option. They really went all out with us, so I think it'll be a really good solution.
It's EDR.
Endpoint detection and recovery.
I knew you all knew it, I didn't.
Right. There's some acronyms in IT that, yeah. It's advanced antivirus at the end of the day, so. That's it.
Okay, any questions for Bill? Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Sarah, you're not gonna be very long, right? Yeah, one thing.
Yes.
Decide everything.
I apologize for not being on the agenda. I had a funeral sent it to Megan. So, here is. Yeah. Today, it's just the assessor's budget for the upcoming year. It's similar to what we passed last year. So just go through what each town will pay to the assessing services. We break it down in postage, taking assessment notices, letters. We estimate all of that based on the prior year and then also based on the upcoming year assessments. And then we also break down the total wages. Turn off. It's a 10. Similar to last year, I have a breakdown underneath of the assessor wages as well. And then on here, it shows the budget increase or decrease from 22. Covington goes down slightly by about $100. Pike is being increased because they're doing a revamp. Wilson's going down slightly as well, and then Huddersfield will be increased because of their revamp. But it's very similar to the previous year. Takes the overall budget that we sent to Janice, it brings it down per town.
So you're not looking for a motion to approve this.
I think, I'm not sure, I could ask Michelle.
Sure, they shot.
Okay, I'm not sure if they're, you motion for this or not. It's the schedule, it used to be, we passed the agreement last session, last time. For, Sharon to sign, and then this is the schedule A that goes along with that.
Sure, we can motion to approve this.
No.
Any questions for somebody else?
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't need to amend the thing to.
This goes with the intermunicipal agreement, so.
Schedule the municipal agreements back, but she's got to, she's just talking about the budget, she's got to bring back the people to the intermunicipal agreement.
So that was last month, that got approved, this is just the schedule, I think, along with that.
So,
This will just get approved in the budget, right? Part of the budget.
I mean, the budget's one thing, but I don't know what makes us officially a cash,
If it's, I mean, we don't actually have the agreements in a resolution, so if that's an attachment A, then this is just sharing. Oh, I do, so. tell her.
And I signed my agreement with them, so I'm saying this.
So, right? And as long as the town is signed, we're just, so, right?
And to a couple tidbits, I will be out for that month, starting this week, for my ankle surgery, but I will be available by phone, email, I'll be checking. You know. School bills were sent out, they are available online as well on our website. So those are all in the hands of the collectors, and they're starting collecting payments this week. And big biggest is starting to take is the new county assessor rate. So I thought I'd just break down so everyone can see his face. The new assessing. Any questions for me?
Questions, Sarah? Thank you. Thank you, Eric, everyone, the sales tax. Update.
I just checked this morning, I don't have anything yet. We've been in obviously for the previous months, so what we got in August is a reflection of July's month. So hopefully we get something this week. I don't know if it's because it's, you know, the holiday or anything like that, so, there, play around some more investing, we're trying, to keep money as liquid as we can for things like moving the hospitals, running things around, obviously. When I had a meeting with Alex from my 3+1, he said our liquidity score was going up and rising, everything where it should be, so in terms of the overall picture of the county, everything looks great. Then I did tell him that we're gonna move some things around, so you know, he's with me on here, we're watching, we're gonna see where the best rates are. And my last prime is pretty awesome, like 2.3% there. They're pretty nice, you can just send it off, you guys probably can send your money off that day, as long as you don't do like a Friday. You can take it out as you need it and everything, so that's a nice program. But we did a short-term CR with Five Star Bank, just to wrap some stuff up so you can get another couple $1,000, you know, before the end of the year and stuff. So any questions on that, we know. We took some more of Tracy's money from her to try and make her some money. It's pretty nice to be able to log in and see your accounts and all of what's doing. That being said, some of the money we wrapped up for short term is the ARPA. The second tranche came in on the 25th for the same amount as it was the first time. Let's see the IRS. It wouldn't let, it had to be the same person's name. It wasn't for me the same person's name. This second button was supposed to be there. I said, I'm not Cheryl, I supply, blah, blah. They said, reach out to IT. So back and forth. Finally, I get them to put it in my name. But in the meantime, I opted out personally for the child tax credit. So I had to go on and scan my face. Then they wanted it to connect to me personally. So if I tried to log into the IRS myself, it was one thing, or at work, it was another. So getting it all linked around finally worked, and it says, you know, if everything's successful, this and that, you get a letter, you didn't get anything, you just got money. So I said, fine, I'm good. So that was fun. Please just put it on this email so I can see, please. And then they said, oh, yeah, like it was nothing. So that's been in, we wrapped that up with a couple extra money from our general fund. And I started to keep them happy too, because I told them we were taking some out, which made them sad. So hopefully from now on, everything will be in my name. Any questions?
Someone's humorous.
It is a pain though. When
It's
you,
a total pain.
any of us, when you go to retire, you look at how many things your name is really on. And it's like, you really need to get your name off some of this.
Okay, scan your face, scan your face, scan your ID, scan your driver's license. Use your other account. My other account is my personal account. They finally got it. And they wanted Cheryl to log in and assign it.
Yeah.
Several businesses wanted that.
For me and my family-owned business, you know, Dad hadn't been signing checks for 10 years and he passed away, and now even to this day, he's still trying to get that straightened out, because it's so in his name.
Number 3, going to just a meeting for the day. The last one was supposed to be in February, but it was the day before a terrible snowstorm in Syracuse, so it got canceled. So this will be my first one. Another that I have is the comptroller contacted me and said that they completed the review of our A&D that was submitted back in April, and everything is to his satisfaction, so. And another thing I was thinking of last night at 2:00 in the morning was, I don't know if anybody's heard on the hospital's financials. I've been back and forth with them. Director Malecki still haven't been able to file our single audit of 2021 because they don't have that yet. I emailed and inquired last week. I don't have an email back from anyone over there, so if anyone hears anything otherwise, they would probably like to see him too. So they can't finish the county single audit of 2021 without those documents, and I haven't heard anything back from anyone on that end. So the final deadline before it's finalized is the end of September. And this is going to be 2 months after the latest we've ever filed it. So our stuff's been done since June. Just so you're all aware, if it doesn't come in,
Tell them what happened,
we are not low risk.
right? It would be a high risk for our single audit, which means they have to increase our testing by 50% of our federal funds, which means time and money. And I believe when we emailed it, you emailed 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, just after we met with the auditors, and they said it would be done by August 31st, right?
That is what Lumsden and McCormick is doing in the hospital's financials. So I reached out to the hospital and said, does Lumsden and McCormick, are they aware of the deadlines? Can they make this happen for you? They said yes. So the 31st it went, Charles emailed me on the 1st and said, have you heard anything?
They're freaking out a little bit.
I passed it along and I heard nothing back since.
Who's freaking out?
Our auditors are a little concerned because it's part of the county audit, ultimately.
But we didn't have hospital done. And who's the one we're not with here from? Dave Lopez or?
Lumsden and McCormick is supposed to, they have the draft, but they're supposed to have their final statements
They have not,
over to them. I have not heard.
okay,
That was my inquiry, was to
last day today.
go over, yeah, I heard today. That needs to happen, and then my number 5 is really just a curiosity. I would like to do 2 main things, which is serve the taxpayers of Wyoming County, and I would like to keep my office staff who are wonderful and helping me with everything that's crazy, keep them happy. People ask if we can change our hours from 8 to 4. So I'm just here in a strictly curious sense. I think that we can definitely continue to serve the taxpayers in the hours of 8 to 4. We're actually open if anybody comes in. I had a call at 7:05 before with vet tax. We do let people come in and conduct business between 8 and 9 a.m. I looked for a local law. Cheryl would forward me what she found. I didn't see anything, but I didn't honestly give it.
There is no local law that does that, but it will just take a motion by the entire, a resolution.
Okay. That's what I did.
Set the hours, because that's what section 206 says. Board of Supervisors can set the hours.
We track like a full traffic 2, 4, 5.
It is minimal. That's what we could do. certainly do a log of the
I know the
activity.
I can tell you, there is nobody here between 4 and 5, I can tell you that for a fact.
I know, so like whenever the bank wanted, when I worked at the bank, whenever they wanted to think about changing hours, we had to track our foot traffic.
My bank option is free, so if I send a wire, that's why when we do AP and we get the stuff, you know, at 2 o'clock, that's number one priority, because the wire and stuff has to be out by 3 o'clock, and then there's next day. So,
Mr. Chairman, I think that would be the budget office, it would coordinate the budget office, and it would also get you a little closer to that window with IT, because I know there was a lot of things going on last week with IT, and so your people were up there working, I mean, they had nothing to do, they couldn't get anything
we
done.
couldn't print our checks, we couldn't make a batch of checks. In the one program that Munis has where you make checks, buttons were missing, buttons have been missing, but big buttons were missing. So once that was resolved, we went, yay, we can make checks, which includes payroll deductions, and if we were live, this would probably have halted HR functionality, I don't know that, but I scared. So when we were finally able to do that, things like, you know, school tax payments, for county-owned property and things like that, came to a screeching halt because we could not print checks again. And so we're trying to contact IT and they're gone, fine, whatever, it was, business hours are different. But, you know, everything we had done to say, okay, now we can print checks, you know, my people were in the office till 5, but they couldn't do anything with it, so.
This makes it a little closer.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Madam Chair, I hear you, but I don't agree because the treasurer is a public facing office, whereas the budget office and IT are not. What is the county clerk's hours?
So the
What is the county clerk's?
95,
And what are your hours?
95.
So
The office of the agent.
I would prefer to keep it consistent. 9 to 5 for the treasurer, because it is a public facing office. And it's consistent with your hours, it's consistent with the clerk.
That's true, we don't really interact that much, I mean.
With them, but you're a public facing,
But when people call us and ask, they do say, they ask us 2 questions. What are your hours and do you close for lunch?
sure,
And then we also have talked about, and I talked to my staff too,
Right.
we do have busy times, but our busy times of the year fluctuate constantly. When are we having the auction? What is the last day of redemption? That depends on Mason and court filings and things like that.
of course.
And so when we send out the correspondence that says this is what you owe, this is the last days, or et cetera, we would gladly extend your hours until 5 for the period of time and put that in the correspondence.
Well, I think it's easier for people to get out of work a little bit early and get into your office by 5 o'clock than it would be for them to come in at 4.
They can come in before they go to work.
They would like to come at 8.
Some do.
Right,
Right.
or they call them lunch, but
I just think from a consistency standpoint, we ought to keep it the same.
You can stagger your hours, that's, I mean, this is.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Why is it you want to change? Is it because of desire of the office staff?
right, that's why I heard it here, because I don't know why it was 9 to 5. And so everyone asked, you know, could it be 8 to 4?
Standard work
I have
hour,
no
9 to
idea.
5.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring it up. because-
Yeah.
We've changed.
Right, and when the
Changed.
checks happen,
We changed
Who changed?
the office of the agent.
Yeah, but there's a county law that sets the hours for the county clerk, the board of supervisors, the treasurer's office. Was there somebody else on there?
civil service, I think it said.
There were like 3 or 4 offices that unless the board of supervisors passes.
Clerk of the board, civil service. There's a law.
At the civil office, when I worked in the civil office, the sheriff's department, we had one that stayed 8 to 4 and I was worked 9 to 5. We had to have somebody there till 5 o'clock.
So unless the board changes that, county law section 206 sets the hours from 9 to 5. But it does say the board has the ability to change that.
Because of,
And it says that the board of supervisors may fix the hours. And the county clerk treasurer, board clerk, board, and civil officer, and chair. It didn't say anything about they had to be set together, and it says that, it also says during the months of July and August, such offices shall be kept open from at least 9 in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon each day. That's what it also says.
They've got that attached to their agenda. When I saw the question and prepared the agenda, I knew right where to find it, so I attached it.
Buildings and codes is 8 to 4.
Right, everybody's names forward, just, that's fine. And when, like I said, you know, when IT's gone and meetings.
I've heard a few comments about building the codes, you know, we close at 4 o'clock and the room, you know, I work till, you know, 8, 9 o'clock, I can't, you know, I got a rush out at 4, so they go home early, and it's a contract, but whatever. And that's my concern here is I understand what you're asking for and why it is nicer, but the public perception, Dan said, not, that office not being open till 5.
DMV's open till 5 too, right, Robin?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure.
So,
Yeah, they stopped, I think they stopped taking transactions about 4:45,
to 5, right?
but they are open
Until
until 5, which would kind of conflict there too, I would say. So,
So I think as a member of the public, it's easier to go in and do your transaction at 8 or 8:15, and then go to work every month and not have to lose anything. I 9 to 5.
Yeah, but if you're working outside of the county,
Depends on your job, Ellen, if
if
you're
you're
starting
driving to
at
Rochester,
o'clock,
you're gone before 8 o'clock.
you're leaving at 7, right? To get up,
Well, then you have to leave Rochester at
No, 'cause
3:30.
but it's easier to
Yeah,
get
that's
out a
fine.
little bit early.
Time we got out of work is at 3:30. So we could easily be here by.
She might be better served if she just staggered her hours.
Well, I was gonna suggest that, you know, track your hours, your busy times, but still stagger them. Be open at 8 to 5.
It's
You only need one person there.
Right, so I feel somebody should be here till 5.
Yeah.
And
I do
to answer
too.
the question.
yeah,
Sure, I mean, I'd be okay with that.
I don't know, if you, I mean, you can do it any way you want it, by either rotating it or.
right.
Is there somebody up there that wants to work 9 to 5?
Yeah.
But I understand that everybody's got their own jobs too, so what happens when somebody calls up for a question for.
Yeah.
You know, somebody else, you know,
But at least they got somebody on the end of the phone.
I think that's the bigger part of it. Okay.
if they call that time.
I'm not going through this with the assessor again.
And our calls are from lawyers, our calls are from banks, and they work 8 to 4.
Right.
So, you know, we get random people and when it's an individual, they call and they say, when are you open? And
Did we just change that real property change? Real property change?
They just changed, yeah.
We're all over the board now.
And the big thing was I came for checks for a whole week and there was, you know, although calling from home and calling from things that I had nobody to reach out to. So I could just sit in my office and pull my hair out and take my.
Did she change the office hours or just her hours?
Just her hours.
We just talked about that.
Yeah.
She just changed.
Yeah.
So the only one we let change was Office of the Aging. They changed theirs to 8 to 4, I think. Or 8:30 to 4. They don't stay to 5 anymore.
So in other departments, if they want to use their time and close their office Christmas Eve, that doesn't apply to us. It just doesn't, because it doesn't say on here, all 4 of these departments have to do the same thing. And we have parents come in for their certificates of residency for their kids because their kids are often doing whatever. People pay their tax payments online or they mail things in, we really don't have that much. I can certainly keep a log of what we get between, and at the same time, should I not be open at 8 AM? Like the county clerk is not, they can open right at 9.
I don't see any reason why you cannot, you know, have some employees there till 5 and the others 8 to 4. And if it becomes a problem with the employees, then you might want to do some sort of a rotating schedule for that so that, you know, if they want to change around.
And now that we are fully established.
I had worked for the county for many, many years at civil office, and I had to work till 5 because people did come in with problems and things. So I truly think that's probably the way that it should go. So I don't know how everybody else feels, but that's the way I feel, so.
Maybe more to come, huh?
Huh?
Maybe more to come.
Alright,
Right, we haven't heard, yeah.
Alright, anything else? Anybody have any questions for the treasurer? We have some controls on the audit.
Oh, shoot, never mind, that's a different question. I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you. Okay, so the agenda, we got page 4. Janice, before we go to Janice, Greg, you interested? You're not, she's not,
I think he's here for one of my items.
okay. I didn't know if you were interested in. Okay. We'll go on with the agenda, Janice. Section 1.
So I typically provide you all with a quick synopsis of what I see, and so I've got all the budgets in, I've got it balanced, a starting point, I rolled it into another section where I can start making changes. I have all the budget narratives by committee, and I think I will probably start emailing those out to you all, so you have some time to look at it. I haven't read them. The ones I have read, I know aren't always accurate. I mean, I read things and I go, that's not even accurate, but not my request, not my, this is why I'm doing this. So I will send them out to everybody, all of them, all the supervisors by committee. And I gave you all, there's some over there, it came in later. This was attached to the agenda, but this one has the increase and the percentage increase, which you might find a little bit more helpful. So when you peek down through, there's some that are, glaring. Obviously, the emergency services towards the bottom, increasing $820,000. That has the $750 that they were instructed to enter for EMS services. What we're gonna do, I don't know. Keeping in mind that some of these increases you see, the increase in salaries. 2021 one-time stipend, the 2022 2.5 increase for CSEA and SDNI. Those were budgeted. So when you see an increase for something, you have to remember that's 3 years of increase for salary. Okay. So that, just to keep that in mind. You'll also see the, now we put money in contingency for that, so, but I just want you to know it wasn't in their department. Okay, so when you see an increase, there was money in contingency, it just wasn't in their department. And the contingency is in that highlighted yellow, that 1990, so you can see it was 1.1 million, and I reduced it to 750. So you can see that it was there, it's just in a different spot now. You'll also start seeing people coming in, asking for an appropriation to cover those salaries. You're gonna see that. I've emailed that out or had to email that out to people, say, you know what, why don't you start tightening this up, see what we need as we go into the budget to get an idea. Because some people might have lots of money in their budget to cover those increases, depending on what's going on or their staffing. So, but it's gonna all come from any funds available, but you have to remember that our entire 1.1 million was wiped away when we appropriated money to buy the ag center. So it's just a shift in where it's coming from.
Under salaries also, they have to remember, we created a lot of jobs this year. So that's gonna hit the budget next year.
Yeah.
We created over 20-some positions, I think, this year. That's gonna show up next year.
And then we have the contracts up for the sheriff's department, so we gonna start reading those.
Well, they were, which is interesting, because I'm looking at their increases, and the sheriff's increase was 300,000, and the jail was 190,000. And those don't include raises because
We don't.
we don't have them. So I haven't even got, I'm not very far in budget. So. Again, like IT, I haven't gotten to those departments, so I have no idea why that's up 690,000. I have no idea. So. Let's see. But this is a good thing reference, so when you get those narratives, that you read the narrative and you can follow along in here and be like, okay, that's what they're talking about, so. Anyways, I decided to provide that. But back to the crux of it, the increase was 55%. And I know everyone kind of says, well, that's okay, it always starts out high. It's never started out that high. Never. So basically 55% increase in levy. Okay, so I've seen it start at 35, not 55. So, without having a more in-depth, at some point discussion, I don't know when, but I think maybe when I get further through the budgets, have a more in-depth discussion about how we want to address the fund balance. When I say at the most risky, using $6 million of our fund balance towards the tax levy, which the hospital, if you guys aren't aware, asked for 10 million. I've always put 3 million in the, in our 5-year plan, which that's higher than, I mean, you all saw the numbers over the years, right? I mean, I sent that all to you. So the difference being that 7 million, I'm not comfortable using 7 million of our fund balance. I'm not even comfortable using 6 million of our fund balance. When I say it's very risky, that means next year we don't have an option. We can't use any fund balance.
Sure.
So whatever that rate comes in at, that's what it's gonna be, or we make cuts.
Well, that was gonna be my question to you, Janice. Because I would assume that you're also looking at the 5-year plan
All the time.
and factoring that in. And we have to consider, obviously, utilization of fund balance this year versus what we may need next year and following years. So I'd like to see your 5-year plan once you're in a position to share that with us, because I think, we're going to be if we were to utilize 6 million, we might be approaching a deficit condition within the county in the subsequent years.
I think it would really find your option. Let's say that.
Okay.
I think, again, I'm not very far from the budget, doing it as fast as I can amongst 100 other things, but
Sure.
there are some items, I mean, I'm making the list, new positions, new, you know, all the increases. I mean, you guys, the market rate is the market rate. It's, you pretty much committed to that, so I've left all that in, but I've identified it so you can see. I don't have any estimates from the sheriff or the jail union.
Right.
There's just a lot still out there that I don't, you
So-
know, and I'm watching the sales tax like a hawk.
Would you be, when would you be in a position to share, to have a more detailed discussion? Because I'm thinking we ought to be doing that maybe at an upcoming committee of the whole. But do we want to wait until October to have that
Well, it's not gonna
conversation?
happen this way at all.
No, well, of course.
So, yeah, maybe.
I mean, that gives us, you know, a good hour and a half
I'm
to kind of
shooting
hash things out.
for, this is what the schedule that I'm trying to stick to. I'm trying my best. I'm hoping to have all of the cuts for the departments. And I'm hoping, although it's already the 6th, I think, to get them all to the departments before the September committee meetings. So by committee of the whole, I may be prepared to do that.
In
If
October,
not, it'll just have to happen later. There's only so many hours in it.
or we call a special session. But I think you need participation from all of the
Oh,
supervisors.
for sure. You're all gonna wanna know what's happening and why. And maybe by then, we will have, maybe by then, the hospital might not need $10 million next year. Or they might not need the 7 we appropriated this year. I mean, that's always a wild card. I don't know where these numbers come from. I mean, I have an idea where these numbers come from, but they seem pretty.
The whole other part of this, we have spent a lot of money this year. You know, the fire training center, we appropriated $2 million, it was a $1 million project, we got almost 600,000 for it. And then we jumped and said, well, we'll throw another million on top of it. You know, I mean, there's that, and there's the egg center that we purchased, which in the long run, I think it's gonna save us money, but we had to put some money up front.
And the building and got
The
through.
the buildings that we're doing, yeah, purchase the building. The, part of the 5-year plan might be part of this. The $1 million, over $1 million we're spending on generators. You know, I mean, that wasn't part of the budget. That's above and beyond.
I think, Brian, it's gonna come down to this, in my mind. You know, the hospital is gonna require a continued subsidy to keep that operation afloat. How much we dedicate to that at the expense of other county projects, programs, so on and so forth, is the kind of the, you know, that's the balance right there, you know? And then how much do we pass on to the taxpayers as a result?
Right.
But I mean, all of these other things that we're doing, ag center, generators, they pale in comparison to what, you know, is required to keep the hospital afloat.
Absolutely.
And Brian had said, we're spending all this money and, but a lot of, what did you say to me this morning? You told me to spend all this money. I said, no, I did not say spend all this money. But we did talk about ARPA money being used
Yes,
and how to use it the smartest way.
right.
So we sat down this morning and I said, okay, we're adding up everything we would have had to pay for anyways. Community colleges, IT equipment, what else? I mean, there's tons of stuff on here we would have had to pay anyways.
Right.
Generators was in our 5-year plan, so that we would have had to fund in our CIP plan. That was $1.2 million. Now we're using ARPA funds. So even though it sounds like we're spending this ARPA money willy-nilly, we really aren't. And a lot of the stuff is like roofs. Yeah, roofs. It was in our ARPA plan, or it was in our capital plan anyway, so basically, we don't have to raise as much in tax levy to put to CIP projects because we're taking care of them now with this influx of money.
But we are limited in our use of borrowing to sustain the hospital. But I don't believe those types of restrictions exist on capital projects.
So, no, we can borrow for capital
Right,
projects,
right.
however, we can't use this ARPA money to just hand over to the hospital.
Okay,
So what that's doing is saving what we're raising in taxes to pay over to CIP, because those projects aren't gonna be there. And we're paying for other things that we would have already paid for. So that revenue is going into the fund balance. So that's how we can appropriate $6 million maybe, or that's why we have a fund balance the size we do, because we paid for, we put stuff in, we claimed the ARPA money on items that we raised money for, so. That moves back into the fund balance.
I just think that to hit the taxpayers of this county with the double-digit increases in their tax levy
It's the hospital 100%.
is
I'm not being
unconscionable.
jerk, but you can't give the hospital 7 million and 10 million more than ever
Right.
before and expect not to be able.
But think about it in your individual towns. I mean, if you were to go to your town and say, I'm gonna hit you with a 15% tax increase, I'd be asking for a referendum, you know, for that type of expense, you know?
I can only help you with what I can help you with. I can give you my opinion if you ask for it. I don't just throw it out there.
But we have potential solutions, but they're very painful. Very painful, and it's not your decision to make those.
And I'm not bringing anything up because it's not mine.
She's gonna be giving us that.
No, she's not.
I don't have options.
She doesn't
about
have
whether to
options.
reduce that. The hospital is not my
Sure.
thing, but it's 100%. You can't you can't make the budget go from 3 to 17. Let's just say it's 7 and a 10 without a huge tax increase. I mean, it's not a shock. I think the shock is the 17 million.
Yep.
That's the shock, and you can't borrow for it, you can't.
It's just fiscally irresponsible to be in that position. Fiscally irresponsible, no
Okay, so
reflection.
like, I'm feeling pretty.
No reflection on you, but it's as decision makers for the finances within the county, it's irresponsible.
It's been a perfect storm.
Well,
Unforeseen things.
I mean, the perfect storm, there's always some pain and suffering that can occur as a result of that.
You can chalk the 7 million we already appropriated for the hospital for this year. You can chalk that up to the agency nursing and the agency costs at the hospital. We're on target for $8 million, budgeted of $1 million. So to sit there and
No, Brian,
second guess.
I'm not second guessing. I understand the situation that we were in relative
But
to
it's not
COVID.
irresponsible. Nobody knew that was gonna hit.
How, well, decisions were made earlier in this year that have impacted the revenue stream at that hospital. Okay?
Yeah.
And some supervisors voted to make those decisions. Other supervisors did not agree with that, but there's no doubt that they had an impact on the revenue stream for that particular hospital. And so that has to be addressed.
I don't think the revenue stream of that change is in the neighborhood of $17 million.
No,
It's nowhere close.
no, but it's not. No one ever said that. We're talking about losing, $500,000 a month, or so in revenue relative to additional surgical procedures and other ancillary activities. We have to make a decision on what that hospital needs to look like. There are other things that some supervisors made earlier in the year too, that said, well, we won't even consider selling the nursing home. we won't consider it because we think that, it's a viable entity, provides patients to the hospital. Well, wait a minute. Are you sure about that? But, so don't be so intransient in your thinking. I'm almost of the mindset of taking this list, and when she's ready with a budget, of going to the comptroller's office and say, hey, maybe you should appoint a fiscal control board for this county because we can't control our finances, similar to what Erie County did.
I don't think we're even close to that. But
You wait.
We haven't even sat down and gone through this yet, really, line by line, and said, we're not gonna do the ambulances, we're not gonna do it,
before we even
we're not gonna
get to
do.
this,
I'm reacting to what the budget director is saying, that her inputs show a 55%. We've never started out at that point. And at a minimum, at this point, she's looking at least a 15% increase in the
and
levy.
those examples, you talk about somebody with answering, that's us, because we have, in the past 8 months, hired 20 employees. Appropriated millions of dollars for the fire training center, appropriated $1 million for this. We have spent that money.
Drop in the bucket.
Drop in the bucket.
20 employees, drop in the bucket. Most of those positions weren't even, high-end employees, other than the 2 people we hired for the hospital. It's all about the hospital, all about the hospital.
I will give you a major part of this is the hospital. And to say that it was fiscally irresponsible, what happened on the hospital, it's a perfect storm of everything that happened. Yes, it's a serious issue down there. And people bad enough in the hospital doesn't help it.
I'm just saying decisions were made earlier in the year that have
Decisions were made
impacted
5 years ago.
the revenue stream. This year.
When Mr. Gomez is in that, we can ask him. Decisions were made 5 years ago that were irresponsible.
So then
We
why,
are overstaffed out there.
so then why do we have the same set of board of managers in place?
We are overstaffed out there.
They're the ones who are responsible for, decisions were made.
CEO. We have a new CEO down there that is, in my eyes, putting us on a better path. And he's paying attention. And his number one thing is the right size of the hospital for the community and not put on the road we were where we spent a bunch of money. And we did 5 years ago, spend a bunch of money. So we got that $20 million, we turned around and started spending money again. Everything that we did. And we did that on recommendations come from the CEOs that we had. I'm not saying just one, there's 2 of them. And now we got a new CEO. And he's looking back and saying, that's probably not the way I would have done it, but he's got the message, he's working on it. And we gotta have support for that hospital to either bring it around or bottom line, you wanna talk about closing it? That's a big loser.
I'm
From
not,
all the jobs and from all the.
I'm not opposed to providing some support for the hospital. But come on, there's a limit to the burden that we can put on the backs of the taxpayers of this county. There's a limit to
I
that.
understand that.
And so if that's the case, then there are some tough decisions that need to be made.
I totally agree.
I will never
What I-
agree to a
what decisions I don't want
15%
to-
levy increase for 2023. Never.
And that's your prerogative.
Okay, it is my prerogative, Jerry, but
You were the number one person.
We don't even know
Take
what's
money
gonna,
from the fund balance, so that we weren't at 7% or whatever it was, and lowering it down. I remember it was.
Not last year.
You
Not
were the
last
one
year.
that was pushing that.
not last year.
And I said 5 years ago, I said, all you're doing is kicking the can down the road, just so it looks good for this year.
I have always been of the opinion that hey, if we're gonna give a couple to maybe even stretching it 3 million a year to the hospital, I'm okay with that, you know? But more, when we're talking, how much? 17
In 2 years.
for over 2 years? 17 million?
In 2 years. Now,
So the way I kind of.
I'm not okay with 3 million, yeah.
Is in my 5-year plan, I always had $3 million. I'm always really close when I do those 5-year plans. because
Yeah.
It's almost like a game to me.
And you kind of cap it at the 3, right?
And
3 million.
I look at it and I'm like, okay, it came in at this, what did I project it to come in at, right? When I did that, I'm thinking, ooh, this is clear sailing for this ARPA money, clear sailing till my retirement column, and I'm like, boom, this could be awesome. And then I got the 10 million. It's 100%, because I had it right down to like tiny tax increases, the cost of a pizza for every year. $10 million is no joke.
No, it's not.
That's the number, that's the piece. So we can nickel and dime and talk about it, but the fact remains that, and you guys obviously are going to have to, fact remains that an enterprise fund cannot function by asking for 10 or 17 or whatever, 3 million, okay, you know,
That's right.
it's an enterprise fund.
It's not a department.
So
So unless we
With-
receive
without-
funding from other sources, state, federal, whatever, some kind of a bailout,
and is anyone working on that?
yes.
Okay. So we, perfect. So so we're not, just to move along, so we all know where we are. If anyone has any questions about any of these numbers, I can't answer for the hospital, any of these numbers, these request numbers, feel free to call me, email me. Sometimes it's hard, why is the DA all of a sudden reduced by 100,000? Well, you got a new grant, so, all these things, there's answers to. A lot of times if you read the narrative, you can kind of make some sense out of what it is. But I will get those narratives out this week by department, they're all gonna be emailed, so watch your emails. I'm gonna plug away at these budgets and see where we are, get as far through as I can. I know I've hit the big ones, the sales tax I reviewed, estimated, increased. I worked with Rhonda down at the DMV, she's got some big revenue sources, and I talked about increasing that, so those changes have been made. But we're still right around that 14%, just so you know. So, hopefully October, committee of the whole, we can take a look. If I have things in advance, I will send them to you. I'm just highlighting increases. I'm not taking out things that people are requesting that's, I asked them, this seems high, why are you doing this? And they said, oh no, that was my bad, you can reduce it. And that's kind of where I am. But, and making sure they add revenue, if the revenue is not in there, I know a lot of people forget about the revenue part, so hopefully by October, maybe the whole, we can maybe spend some time and really go over it, starting pretty early. And whatever you guys want to do. And if anything significantly changes with the hospital, which is the only thing that's going to impact this budget, then, some of the work will be ASAP, because it's huge.
That's right.
It's huge, it's the hospital, and no blame, no nothing, we have a pandemic. It's,
Well, there is some.
it's a struggle. So, anywho, that's where we are with the budget. So I attached the list, let's see what. I do have a transfer on here, number 3.
Hey, Janice, can I ask you a question? I've already got a PO in place for this. Can I change this when I do the invoice? Whatever, just- Or it's still certain?
I would change it, I would ditch you already have that included in the other line. I don't know, I'll ask.
Can we fix that?
Yeah. So this is just moving money from, this is the 28,000 that this board said that they need a receptionist at the Ag Center. So we had appropriated it into the tourism budget because that's who's taking care of it, but I think it's more of a righteous expense to come through the Ag Center. So I like to always have a good picture of what the Ag Center is costing us, only because we have outside agencies renting from us. So, if it was all just us, it wouldn't even matter, but I just wanna make sure we have a good accurate reflection of how much that building is costing us for just tracking sake. So I just like to make that transfer from tourism to the Ag Center.
Move it.
A motion by Supervisor May. Any questions? Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
I just haven't provided the income statement in a while for everybody. That was attached to the agenda. I made some notes, nothing really shocking, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that we aren't expecting. I mean, really nothing popped out at me. The only place that things jumped out at me is obvious that they haven't sent me their claims yet to claim through June. Because this is through June. So, that's how I know that things are lacking. So, when you see that, that means it'll put them in a better position once that's done, so. If anyone has any specific questions on this, there's a lot there. And if anyone doesn't understand how to read this, let me know. I'll walk you through that. Because it's a good tool. And if you don't know what you're looking at, it's not a good tool, so,
You had something marked right on that front page.
tribal payment.
Yes.
Yeah, because we received that $1 million in from the
Seneca.
Nation,
The Senate,
the settlement,
they owed
the
us.
settlement. So far, actually, I think we've gotten more.
For how many-
This is only through.
Do you know for how many years that was? Two or
I don't, I'm
three?
not involved.
I
in
don't
that at all,
remember.
So I don't
I
know.
think it was like 2 or 3 years that
I
they,
asked Rhonda because we didn't budget, because we used to budget, like, we used to get $50,000
right,
or so a year.
right.
So I'm guessing this is all our back.
It is, and I don't remember how many years back.
Maybe
it went. That one, yeah, that was in the courts for years.
So I'm not sure if we're supposed to get something going forward.
You should,
We should.
yes,
This is. This is
right.
the Senate tribal, the gaming settlement.
I know that the revenues from the OTB are not a lot, but they're a lot more than they used to be. They're- Yeah.
So that's what that is. It's a catch up from years.
Janice, I just want to say one thing. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you. And hopefully we can plug this along, but I'm in agreement. There's no way I'm going to put that kind of an increase at this time of the year on the taxpayers. It just can't. They're gonna go crazy.
So hopefully the hospital's got some better news or more accurate numbers or better projections, or I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
And we're also looking at jail renovations.
That we borrowed for, I think.
That we'll have to borrow for that one.
What was the estimate for that?
He didn't have one yet. They're drawing up the plans now. Mike is doing a really good job with that. He really is, so. We all went public safety on a tour and he really explained things, right? Everybody went. And anybody that hasn't gone should go and meet with Mike and let him show you what is needed over there, so you understand what's going on. Correct? It's kind of interesting, actually, when you get there.
I tried once, I went and then I turned around and ran back. I go, "Oh, I got one of those."
Actually, don't even have to go inside.
You don't. You can go right to the outside part where he is talking, where he wants to put this project. So
Is that where the guards are?
it's up against, yeah, it's up against where that, who's in that office there? Or public defender's office,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Is it the historian? Okay.
Sure.
That's what the story is.
Oh, it's in the secure lot.
The secure lot means nothing, it's a fence in there, you can't put prisoners there because there's no reason where. Which is a chain link fence goes.
No, that's what I'm asking you, the part of the building that they're gonna build out on is in the secure lot.
Well, that's not really a secure lot, because it's.
That's what I call it. So, whatever. It's not like
It's
they're putting.
Yeah, it's like the gate is there for the patrol cars to go in. So they can only go up to one certain section to not block that gate that needs to be opened and closed.
So anyways, just one other thing is next week I have a commitment out of the state, so I'm gonna be here Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday. So, I won't be here for a committed or a board meeting. I could certainly have, no. But I'm working hard on it, staying late, doing things. I can have Dee come if you guys so choose. Dee can certainly, she knows what's going on mostly. More than willing to show up if need to.
Okay. Any more for Janice? Keep moving then. Corporate board, Cheryl, number one.
I have a little bit of housekeeping, we should give Becky, the 7-hour standard work day that she so rightfully deserves, and that's it. It was a typo on my part, and it's just easier to do it instead of going back through, because I had to post. The requirement with these time and attendance resolutions is that they've got to be posted for 30 days. And then after that, then I have to submit them to the state, so this is just easier than trying to treat it as a typo, because that would be. The chairman of the board typically gets 7-hour standard work days.
So the second part of it. That eat the board. Early result, 30.
I don't know, it's like-
Because it's 7 hours, she's still getting the max, and you can only get full time, but the hours that she puts in, she's got that, but they cap her it.
Okay.
Move it.
No, it's the 20 days and the 30 days, for those of you that have seen your town retirement reporting, you gotta cap out the 20 days and 30 days.
I'll keep it.
I know, I made sure you're getting more service time doing it this way, and you should do a 7-hour workday. Because we're a 7-hour workday, the supervisors are 6 because they're part-time. But the chairman has always enjoyed a 7-hour workday, and it was my mistake. Well, the retirement, I don't know if you enjoy it elsewhere, but the retirement anyway.
All right, you got a motion by Supervisor Davis. Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 2.
This is why my friend Jim Bragg is here, because my favorite person in the whole wide world, Jerry, is who?
Purpanopolis.
Papianopoulos.
Papianopoulos.
2015, he passed away. He was our mathematician that did our rated voting. So NISAC has teamed up with the Benjamin Center, and we had some census hiccups, and Jim Bragg became my go-to person for are updating the weighted voting, so Jim Bragg, take it away.
So of the Benjamin Center will be doing their proposal to recalculate our weighted vote system. And they have the expertise, they're kind of the only game in the state, so to speak, that has expertise that could withstand the conditions for challenges to set up a vote system.
How do they accomplish that in light of the census discrepancies that we noted in our census update?
That's part of the report that they'll prepare, that they use a special, they'll take the census tract and apply, subtract it as an estimation, that counts as 960 people that were erroneously allocated to the town of Fairfield.
Okay,
Not only that, Dan, but they mine out those inmate numbers from the Attica State prison. From our state prisons, they mine those numbers out.
when was the last time we changed?
2011.
11 or 12.
It's every census.
Every
year
census.
It took us a little longer this time because of COVID, because of the issues,
Sure.
but the year after.
So when we make a decision to change the weighted voting again, it'll be based on some science associated with,
The new
Yeah,
system
census.
and the math calculation that occurs by the Benjamin Center.
And that thing showed up the last census too, I believe.
Yes, it did.
The fact that there was a correctional facility.
Yeah.
The last two census they screwed.
So we used to work with the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council, and most specifically David Zorn. He was the one that always helped us with mining out those numbers, but David Zorn has since retired from the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council, and his expertise on mining those numbers went with him. Fortunately for us, when Jim Bragg came on board, he was the next guy to look to for helping with those numbers, and he's been pretty involved in our census anyway.
I'll provide the methodology that the Benjamin Center uses, it's pretty in-depth.
It was with Lee Papianopoulos too, and we always went with them because it was a third-party calculation and nothing that was done in-house. And his results had occasionally been challenged in the courts, and they stood the test of the court challenges. And that's why we always went with Lee Papianopoulos. Since the beginning of the requirement for either one man, one vote, or the weighted voting system, we always went with Lee Papianopoulos. So now it's the Benjamin Center, they're picking up the expertise. That's their nickname, so it's the Research Foundation for the State University of New York. You can read the rest of it. So that's their new expertise.
Is this gonna happen this year, like finish this year, do you think?
Yes, yes, it'll be done by December.
I don't know, but I'll figure that out next time. I'm not gonna spend anything just yet. We're still trying to get the contract together. I'll bring it back next month. I know the dollar amount, but I think the doing way, which is this, that's the proposal, and that's the contract.
so we need an appropriation.
We will, like maybe.
We have a motion by Supervisor Grant. Any more questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
And sure, we've got one.
CFC, the protection boards of government, and it's $2,000 cheaper. Which would have been fine, but because of the change of Lloyd's of London, I would rather see Lloyd's of London on the resolution, because we come in cheaper, but we have to do the housekeeping when we go over, but because it's a change in carrier, I wanted to see the new carrier resolution.
Move it.
Motion by Supervisor May, any more discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Cheryl? Under the insurance, I'm sure that we have a policy that covers people that go into people's home now, our employees that go into people's home for some reason, I don't know, PSS or if you happen to talk to insurance people, can you just double check that once we start putting like aids into people's houses, does that need a special?
I'll ask. but I just covered
Because now
under
you're looking
that.
at, there's always, you get a dishonest one, you get somebody that steals the silverware, you know what I mean? There's a special policy for that.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a special policy, I think we have something in place, but I'll get it pinpointed and an explanation. Because it's covered under our general liability.
That's what I'm thinking, but just cover it.
I will, yeah, I'll ask, and I'll send the answer to everybody.
Alright. We're gonna skip a few things and go up to the hospital.
Mr. Chairman, since we're 3 minutes early on the hospital portion of the agenda, can I propose a 5-minute recess before we have Mr. Kovas and
Sure.
because I think I anticipate that'll be a lengthy discussion as well. 5 minutes, is that okay?
Oh, sure. We're gonna make that one 3 hours. Okay.
Yes, right.
Have a cigarette.
Okay.
I had a phone call the other day outside of which is so sure.
I'll be good.
You guys sitting on Zoom, I'm just gonna mute this thing while we're in recess.
All right.
We're gonna go back, to page 7. We're gonna go back to, so last thing we appropriated for Cheryl, for the,
Way to go.
way to go. For the way to go, Cheryl's asking for $8,000. No more than $8,000 be appropriated from one account to another.
And
To cover that way to go bill.
Research.
You need a motion to that? Okay.
Yeah, motion by Supervisor Brick. Any other discussion on this?
As long as my prisoners are included.
What?
As long as my prisoners are included.
Show us your prisoners.
Yeah. Open up that bar, let's see. I can show you mine. Can you show me your? Okay,
Counting house.
motion for the $8,000 corporation, we pay for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, so. And we'll go to top of page 7, we're gonna go back to the schedule. And so Mr. Colvin and Mr. Ray last, we're gonna have a meeting afterwards. So on page 7, appropriation for a county attorney. I think it's a charter rate for the Westlaw revenue from $10,000 budget. By Supervisor King and Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And for human resources department, finance clerk. Amendment, Sarah General S. Amendment for a payroll clerk. And set the sheriff, under sheriff at, or the salary of the other sheriff at the $108,000 before that. So moved. Motion by Supervisor Becker. 2, 3, and 4. Questions on 2, 3, and 4? All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Page 9. Always engaging position of great fill for personal care aid. And then social service. What's for social service? We'll do the office of the agent one first. Any questions on this one? Motion by Supervisor Grant. There are no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And on the social services, position fill for community service worker, position fill for senior social service program specialist, and a position fill on data entry machine operator. Any questions on 2, 3, and 4? Got a motion by Supervisor Grant, 2, 3, and 4. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And then appropriation for social services. $100,000 served. Contract.
I'm thinking. This is for the, they got some federal funding and they're using it to, they have it called something, and this is, I think, related to all those contracts for the hotels and lease agreements. Yeah, they got a big federal funding for the federal to take care of all these, help out with lease, and then there's also some bonus payments to the landlords to take in people. That's what this
And this
is.
is
So we make sure.
appropriate all the grant money over.
Yep.
A motion for that. That's where the grant again. Are there any questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And then page, bottom of the page, mental health. Appropriation for $6,000 to adjust state aid. Appropriation of $37,000. For the lawyer, for the computer services, for the lawyer grant. Top page 10, there's appropriation for autopsy transport, $4,000, and then maybe treatment, for local health, or no? Oh, it's all public health.
It's all public health. I'll move them.
You moving them all there?
Yeah.
And motion by Supervisor Davis. Any questions on 1, 2, 3, or 4? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those carried. All right, bottom of the page, highway. Appropriation, was any fund available for the dozer, versus the dozer? Appropriation, any funds available for the pavement therapy of $30,000? Appropriation of $200,000 for gasoline. And appropriation for any funds available for the balance of the 2021 expense, time period, and show off road. Is there any questions on 1 through 4?
Yes, Mr. Chair, since number 1 with the non-consent, can we vote on that and number 2 separately?
Sure. So stick with number 1 then.
Question on that, have they ever had a dozer before?
Yes. No.
Yes.
So this again is, they typically take out a ban and use a ban, but they've got a fund balance that, once it's there, we can't take it back, really. So the machinery fund balance is what they're gonna use to do that.
Okay, understood,
And then I believe they're pushing the ban off a year.
understood.
Have a motion on it? Supervisor Britt? There's no more questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. And we have 2, 3, and 4.
And number 2, there was a question there about pavement marking, and Devin emailed and said it was was it appropriated properly in the budget previously, that's why that's in there. That's what he said.
I think they're doing more miles.
It wasn't an addition, it was just,
It wasn't a change like this one.
yeah.
And originally when I voted no for the dozer, which I still am leery about spending the money out of the fund balance. Item number 3 here, it was just the 200,000 was also from any funds available. And then it was explained that it's not, it was offset. Because I was looking at, they wanted this, a ton of fund balance.
My impression from Devin's email was that number 2 was under budgeted.
Yes.
Sure. But if answer my follow-up question yet regarding whether or not we would rebid.
I can answer that for you because I saw that come in and they bid these every single year. It was just a matter of them not changing their budget number from 2021 to 2022. That's how he explained it.
Well, the way he explained it to me was that he typically bids after the budget's been established. So he didn't have a solid number.
And he could have done this. earlier
Bid came in
in the year.
higher.
He just didn't do it. It was just an oversight.
And I think, you can estimate all you want, but you might do a road, or something might happen, you might end up doing a road that weren't, everything's not set in Tar. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Set it- everything's not set in action.
Stone,
Yeah.
that's right.
He was only there a month, he got- did it.
Highway stone.
Two.
It's just an estimate, it's just an estimate.
Okay, so I need a motion for 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, motion by Supervisor Brick. There's no more questions on 2, 3, or 4. All in favor?
Aye.
Seeing as number one was not voted against on by anyone, will all four of these end up as on the same?
No, you consent.
Opposed, this one? One carried. All right, those and grounds. Appropriation for 65 grand is covered snowplow and everything else at the ag center. And $53,000 for property renovation. ARPA funds. Motion by Supervisor Brick, 5 and 6. Questions on 5 and 6? Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. And page 12, I got appropriation from sheriff of $500 in funds available to cover insurance. Recoverable. Then we got $50,000 appropriation.
I don't think that's right. Yeah, I did the math and what they did, it equals because, that 45,455 was 45,955, and then it would not have equaled, so I got $500 deductible out.
But I don't think they're paying us for the full changeover expense.
They're not, that's the 25.
Right, so we're not getting the money from insurance for the 25, that's
Gotcha.
So it's
So I think I sent you the numbers, the changed numbers. Yeah, so
It's still different.
it's changed because they're only paying us 845 for the change order expense, so that changes how much is we're paying.
Well, they said that the car come in at 43,430. That was almost a $10,000 increase, so that hurt.
I sent you that, it's more than 500, it's like 20.
Oh, and then.
3,025.
Yes, just so everyone knows, it's not, we'll look at it.
Okay. This is to replace Amy Novak control register.
1 and 2, Brian?
Sure.
How about 3? Appropriation that goes with.
So 2 and 3 also, I got a motion by Supervisor May. Any questions on 1, 2, or 3? See. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those are carried. All right, so that puts us on page 13 with Mr. Goldis. Right?
We should take it down, I guess.
I know. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, folks have told me I have gone over with, so sometimes it's hard to hear. Just wave, Doug, if you, I need to speak up a little bit. Well, it's good to see everybody again. This is kind of a weekend with all of it. Could be worse, so I guess it's not.
Could be snow.
Outside. I was at home inside.
Silver lining.
Yeah.
So we'll go through some updates. There's a bunch of resolutions that were proposed, there's a handout that Pam's gonna show you shortly. Haley's produces a impact, I think you go to this today, we'll go through that in more detail. There's some other articles in there about OB programs, obstetrical programs in rural areas that we'll go a little bit, and there's a sample marketing, I think at the very end, right? Yeah. So you'll start to see some marketing stuff, as I've noted in prior meetings, we're ramping up marketing very aggressively as fast as we can go. There's more marketing for much of the earlier part of the year, so that's ramping up aggressively. Financials and from Mark had promoted, so we asked for a guest for some period of time, 5 days. Somebody, that's why I asked that, but financial results from July were very consistent with prior months, lost 1.7. So it's almost like they're coming in pretty consistently as we're starting to make progress, but it is slow. That's operating. So with some non-operating income loss, total loss, net loss, but we look at operations and it should be generating a margin to get us to break even or a small loss. So that's the main thing that we're going to look at. Loss year to date through July, 9.4 million. It's still on pace for almost 20, but 19.2 million loss for the year. Improvement plan is in progress. I'm going to go through some details that I shared with the board of managers last month. The improvement plan, so you can start to see the progress that we're making. Go over that a little bit, but it's basically agency expense, nursing agency expense reduction, workforce planning, payer contracting, clinic integration, provider recruitment, and operational efficiency initiatives. The target dates for these range anywhere from immediate to out to almost 12 months. Next time. The staffing agency cost, which is interesting, we should probably talk about this a little bit. We were running several months ago by 800,000 a month. That number's dropped to about less than 500, 476, but they're about part of this, the rates have dropped from about 175 to 150. And also the use is going down. The struggle, to be very candid about it, staff and hospital are filling all those slots again with regular time and overtime. So structurally, the hospital is staffed at a certain level, and even if you're dropping the agency, tendency in the hospital is going to fill those slots back up. Almost fixed staffing, regardless of where it's sent. So this is where Dawn is really coming. She's leading the effort for us to restructure our staff, our nursing model works, how we're taking care of these folks. We're working with the hospitalists, ED docs to make sure patients we're taking in the hospital meet criteria of being an acute care hospital. Oftentimes we have a lot of folks in there that are respite care or custodial care or swing care that really don't need a history in the hospital and taken anyways. And a lot of times don't get paid for those folks. So we're not in a position right now to take those patients anymore. There are other resources for those folks in the community or in a nursing facility, so we're going to be making some changes there. The whole point of this, folks, is to get our census, our average census to a manageable number and it's staffed to that number. Everybody needs to meet criteria, either the inpatient or observation. If they don't meet those criteria, it shouldn't be in the hospital. That allows us to optimize our staffing. That's it. That's a substantial improvement for us.
And we'll talk about this in a minute or two when we look at different initiatives that we're working on now. Volumes continue to be mixed kind of year to date. Inpatient mental health, skilled nursing facility volumes are all strong year to date. Surgery, imaging volumes, ancillary testing, had significant drop off since last year.
What is significant, Dave?
20 to 30%.
20 to 30% reduction?
Over last year.
Okay. And obviously that reflects on revenue. To what degree?
So right now, from a revenue perspective, for the month, we were running 800,000 behind. And for year to date, we're in 5 million.
800,000 for the month? And 5 million for the year. Revenue. Okay.
Just from surgery? Just from surgeries?
No, surgery, lab, X-ray, rehab services.
Everything.
It's everything. It's all outpatient. As David said, we're actually positive. If you look at our acute admissions, positive on mental health, and we're getting to about even with the nursing home. It's been positive the last couple of months. The beginning of the year, we're down a little bit, but it's all the outpatient services have dropped off dramatically.
Any expenses related to those services also decrease?
No, that's the whole point. We're still staffing at a fixed level, even though a lot of those areas have dropped. Yes.
And what specialty?
What's that?
What specialty?
Across the board. Orthopedics, obviously, is taking a hit. General surgery is that. Any other questions? If not, before we get to the potential impact, let me just run through the improvement plan. We talked about this in prior meetings and promised you folks to go into some level of detail. We're not in a position to go through line by line. It's really isn't the appropriate form for that, but just to kind of highlight, as we did the board managers last month, where we're targeting for improvements, what improvements we've made so far, which ones are ours. So completed initiatives to date, as of September 1st, there were a number of memorandum of understandings for the union to pay bonuses, to have folks come in and work extra. With Dan's help and HR, we eliminated those pretty much across the board, except for the night. I think the night shift is the only one that's still in effect. That's a savings versus our $1.5 million. Right there. It's a struggle right now. Justin was calling me over the weekend that it's a struggle to fill positions in the nursing home, but it's we're just not in a position to pay those rates anymore. So we've done that. We'll have to tough it out for a little bit of time. The legal counsel consolidation to Costello Cooney saved us about $100,000 off of our run rate. And there was a small contract with the group to give us recommendations on capital equipment, which we were eliminated that. That's about $18,000 savings. The workforce planning, which is the bulk of the work that started and will be continuing throughout the end of the year, is about $3 million plus, $3 to $3.5 million in savings. That will be restructuring positions, eliminating some positions, consolidating positions. So that's the biggest effort that we've got underway. Some funding opportunities at the state. And these are mainly around the solar community. That's the so this is in place already. Our estimate is about a $400,000 pickup. That's just because we're on 30 solar community schools in the state. Correct? Did you want to talk about this?
So actually, we're one of 20 solar communities in the state. The state allocated $30 million to solar communities. Unfortunately, the mechanism that they're using to distribute the funds is off of Medicaid managed care outpatient volumes. Based upon our volumes, he has calculated it'll be worth about 400,000 to us. We're gonna get 100 of it in October, and the other 300 in the January, February time.
And a lot of that is because our Medicaid population in Wyoming County is so small, it's about 5%. If we had, where Mark was in Niagara Falls, it was 30%. 36%. So a lot of it depends on your Medicaid payer mix. We just don't have a lot of Medicaid in the county. There's about $170,000, and this is on the resolution list that will request your support and approval to consolidate from pre-bone companies for our outpatient clinics to one. And that can be in place by the end of the year. We've got accounts receivable reduction of about $1.5 million, which is in progress, working it down. We were at about 70 days AR, that's down to 61, about 61, so working that down needs more cash for us. In our cash on hand. So that's a big one. Payer contract negotiation, another big opportunity for us. All of our contracts with Ross, Merit, Health, South are all up at the end of the year. We've engaged outside consultant, Joe and I, from past work, who was an executive with Ross. Conservatively, at this point, we're looking at a pickup starting January 1 from all of these contracts, getting improvements in that. So that's a big pickup for us. And then some standardizing and consolidating some contracts for providers and vendors. We estimate about $900,000. Total value of completed initiatives so far about $600,000. And expected value of progress initiatives we're anticipating about $7 million. And stuff that's ongoing now. Okay.
When would we realize the benefit of those reductions?
Well, some of them are sooner rather than later. Some of our contract consolidations or changes, the notice period with existing vendors can be anywhere from 90 days to 180 days. We just got one proposal for about a $600,000 improvement. That's probably the end of the year for that to go into effect. So these are probably several, 3, 4, 5 months.
Did you mention that you made a change to legal representation as well?
Correct. We're not using our own.
No more. They're out.
Well, we're not. But there's still some invoices coming in from before I started in May.
Sure.
There's one on the list of approvals.
And the new firm is
Costello Cooney.
out of where?
Syracuse.
Syracuse.
They have
Okay.
an arrangement with Wyoming County existing to fix their rate at $230 an hour. Just for comparison, Garfinkel Wild was about $600 an hour.
Do we need to continue to retain Garfinkel and Wild for any?
Not for hospital business, but there is some work that they were doing with legal case. And I refer those two gentlemen in the back of the room, Rich and Dan. I don't think we're using them, but they may be of some value potentially.
Sure.
If they want to respond to that in this session or not.
No, I understand.
I think the best way to say that is the two insurance or legal teams do need to work with them to understand their history. So that would be their representatives, not us.
As far as hospital, we're not using them more. I think that PSR is using them for some bylaws support, which I understand has been going on for a while.
So obviously, we're gonna see a substantial savings in the legal representation from a billing rate standpoint.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
Dave, could I just make a comment? Last month I asked if you could send me a copy of the bills from Garfunkel and Wild, which the amount was $186,000. There's 70, Dan sent them to me, 71 pages. As Dave just said, $600 for one attorney per hour, $620 for the other attorney. Has anybody else looked at these?
I think there was one for 680 in there.
I might have been Donahue. I printed off 20 pages. First I printed 10, see what it was, and I'll just give you an example. On April 3rd, 2020, 9 cents an hour, client follow-up review of contract regarding Northville issue, $558. On April 3rd, when I'm assuming both attorneys were on the same call, $540. Research the same. So that was $1,100 for one call. There were 10 calls in this section, this 10-page section. The total was $9,756. This was in April. The bill was due to be paid. On the front it says, upon receipt, bill was sent to the hospital October 23rd, 2020. Board of Supervisors received this bill this year, I believe, right?
Right, I believe the hospital received it. But the hospital.
This year. So
Where's the bill from 2020?
yeah, so right here, October 23rd, 2020. Where are these bills at? And who reviewed them? Last week, September 1st, article in the Buffalo News editorial regarding the situation of Pioneer Central School in Yorkshire. A buyout for $474,000 for two people. Basically, the crux of the article was about transparency and who's watching the money. We've got a serious financial situation here, and nobody watched this. And I've only looked at 20 pages here so far. Jerry, did you look at these? Brian? All I'm gonna say.
Well, I believe, isn't there an agenda item here to pay legal expenses?
Well, there's $7 million on top of that, $38,000 that came in up through mid.
Well, we've only, so is that in addition to what we've got in here?
Correct. Is that correct?
It was the 120 originally retainer, and then we got $486 on a whole bunch of past invoices, and this is the latest invoice.
Okay. Sure, where is that in here?
It is, it's in there, yep,
I should mention that there would be
page 14.
Jeff Brown called me last week. We did arrange, we stopped the monthly retainer of $10,000 as a. I requested they put us on a payment plan, so we will be starting the payments probably to the tune of $45,000 quarter. And they agreed to let us pay that out over the next 12 months. So we're not gonna pay it all at once.
Sure. So on the issue of the legal expenses, there's two parts to this resolution that we're going to be voting on. One is to extend the services with Garfunkel and Wild effective 1/1/22 through the end of this year, 12/30/31/22 as follows, or not to exceed 10,000 per month. Increase the contract by 38,893 to cover invoices received for services from February 1st of this year to May of this year. And are you saying that there are more coming in, or you just received more?
Just received
The 38. Okay. So we are continuing to extend the contract with, is that correct?
That was the original wording of the original resolution, and we did extend it for 2022, but Dave just said that we canceled the retainer.
So,
Those words were from the original resolution as previously amended. So
Okay.
all we're doing now is increasing the amount by
so the only thing we need to vote on then is this appropriation of 38,893. We're not continuing.
Hospital's not using it, so you know, see a little bit of data here, so because it's happening before I got
I
here.
understand. No,
We're not using them, there's some outstanding monies owed. And I think Dr. Cansar may still be using them for bylaws council. I've told him I've tried to clean that off, it's not much, but I think he's still working on the bylaws.
well, Mr. Cosmo here. Is the Board of Managers using Garfunkel and one through the remainder of this year?
Board management doesn't take anything, the hospital uses them. About that answer, I'm not sure about that. The bylaws have not been presented to the board of managers, so it's probably some cleanup with Paramount One.
Right.
I'm not aware of it, yeah.
So does Dr. Panasaw have permission from the board to do this? Is that how that works? Was he assigned to update the bylaws and use the attorney?
Well, my understanding is the bylaws and Rich helped me here have been under review, I think, for at least 2 years. And COVID put that process, delayed it considerably. But I think that was past practice that we were utilizing government law for some of that support. I think this is just, as Rich said, a continuation of that. I know the medical staff has reviewed the bylaws. They are scheduling a vote shortly to bring them back to the board, I believe in October. So I wouldn't expect there to be a lot of support, but maybe another invoice or two for small.
So Cheryl, from a procedural standpoint, I mean, we normally vote to pay the invoices to Garfunkel and Wild.
We
in
don't.
finance.
Can I ask a question before I answer your question?
Sure.
But maybe a clarifying question. I'm just wondering, as we're sitting here and I'm watching Pam's head come up over your shoulder a few times. I wonder, because the instruction from the hospital CEO was to discontinue the use of Garfunkel Wild through the regular contract period. If it would be cleaner to suggest that they do a standalone agreement with Garfunkel Wild for the 38,893 for the services that are in those exhibits that it mentions for the effective date of February 1 through May 31st of this year. And then that is a standalone, where the original one, they've been asked to no longer utilize, and that will just expire on its own once they clean up whatever they're doing through that old contract. I mean, that's maybe the way I'm hearing it.
Do you anticipate additional expenses from Garfunkel and Wild?
Just received another was 2,000 change.
I anticipate that we will be receiving additional invoices as the potential litigation continues, and if you'd like to discuss it further, I think we need to do that in a attorney-client session.
Okay. That's completely understandable. But I'm trying to come up with a reason why I would vote yes versus no. I understand paying the bill, but moving forward, we have to do legal representation. But I understand your concern. So that would.
Depending on what you say, legal representation on certain issues, but there's perhaps an issue that is still ongoing that perhaps you don't want to.
Well, let me ask you this, Counselor.
Again, I think that we had an attorney-client session.
Okay, that's fine.
Any other questions regarding the financial If you look at these, and we have a handout, hospital association New York State policies, puts the document out every year, basically analyzing the economic communities around the hospital and health system. So we have the hospital impact on the county. Just wanted to highlight this. Oftentimes very informative. To demonstrate how is their impact from the health system on how we're looking at the economic impact. It's also- So the benefit, I'm just going to hit some highlights. This is a document from February of this year. I believe the data reference to this is 2020, so it's a little bit of a lag. Typically, when they do analyses like this, they have to go back and go before. It should not have changed that much, however. Economic benefit to Wyoming County from $148 million impact overall economic activity. 1,100 jobs generated. $48 million in payroll expenditures annually. And $14 million in. You can see there's some other data in there. Unless folks have questions or comments on that in particular. The health impact or medical care impact of having a hospital. 63,000 total patients cared for annually, 11,000, 2,000 patients treated in the hospital. And this is, I believe, a 200 babies delivered. Track a little bit more than that. Yeah, 6 months. I think you get the point of this. Like I said, the hospital association always needs to for you when we get next February. We'll be back and show you. We are full members of the hospital association. They do some of the best work in the country. Advocacy, lobbying, but also ethics. If there's no other questions, there's a couple of other documents in here, and I heard through these. This is mainly under pleasure. And you actually, there's a couple of documents here on special care in rural areas. And we talked about this a little bit in our board managers meetings. But I think folks know births have been declining at the hospital for some time, certainly as they are in most rural areas. And as they decline, that puts stress and pressure on the organization to provide enough infrastructure, provide safe care, anesthesia support, we do on-hand coverage, nursing coverage, pediatric coverage, and so forth. We've estimated in the past that subsidy of that program, because our volume, our numbers are low, is about $1.5 million a year. For the county to subsidize that program. Given our shortage of anesthesia, agency nursing, that number is well over $2 million now. And unfortunately, just make you folks aware that Dr. Ohm, Ellie Ohm, has resigned from the hospital at the end of the year, which leaves us with one week for Ohio. So we'll aggressively start a campaign to as folks, you guys know, it's hard to find and hard to reach to rural areas. So this is just, again, some reflection and some perspective from other rural areas about obstetrical care.
and programs. There's another document at the end, some other hospitals in the area, Brooks and Lockport, Eastern Niagara, which have had kind of challenges, financial challenges in the last several years, are building what's known as micro hospitals instead of big campuses. These are very targeted, typically 8, 10, 15 beds, something like that. Again, it's just a little bit of perspective that's happening in that area. And the last committee here is an example of marketing that we're starting. Possibly, this is both digital, both using Facebook and yes, Facebook, I guess that's a big one. A lot of kids use it. And also print for us old folks. Time savers, but also the arcade favor, so and then also billboards. We've identified billboards across the county, promoting our programs and services, as well as some radio program. Some radio programs too. Okay. That's up on those items. Questions? Outpatient clinics, just another update. We continue to make progress with our integration of our clinics, our primary care clinics out in the community, and also our specialty clinics, integrating those with the hospital, common electronic record systems, management oversight. Brittany Coft is doing this job. We hired a supervisor for doing some of the consolidation, not supervision and management of the clinics. We're also working on telecom systems, so we have one number to call for our clinics instead of each clinic has its own phone number. And we'll roll into a phone tree. Basically, you call and it says, "Welcome to Wyoming County Medical Group. If you're having a medical emergency, hang on, blah, blah, blah. If you want primary care, push 1, pediatric care, that's 2, so forth, and so on. And that will allow us to get more efficient at the clinical level, so we don't have to duplicate all of these services every single time. We did have a consultant come in with a review of every provider last week across every clinic. He will be giving us a template basically for standardization of contracts, productivity, patient expenses, staffing, so our clinics, not just 30 days. We use that, get into our overall treatment plan. Physician recruitment efforts are underway. We have offered out to hot at the who's actually looking for us in a local capacity. I'll be meeting with them later today. Hopefully, have some good news. He only wants to work part-time, a little bit older gentleman, but 12 joints. So stay tuned on that. Marketing efforts, we talked about that. And those are the main items there. Contract negotiations, I'm giving you kind of heads up on this. We've entered into those aggressively with Ross and Mara and something out. And we're very optimistic about those. So we got good responses from the payers so far. Inflation, which is a good thing, actually helps a little bit in this regard. We were getting increases of 2%, 3%, 4% in the past. Now we're looking at 7%, 8%, 9% increases from the payers. So. Talked about Centrix marketing, we talked about. The last thing I'll close with before we get into our resolutions is Connie Alminger, who's our chief nursing officer, will be retired. This Friday is our last day of our formal department banking. So I think everybody knows Connie's been in the health system for 38 years. We will have an event for her. She wanted a very quiet event. So we're having an intimate event, I think Thursday for her, and we got a plaque service to the health system and the community. I just want to make sure folks She has left the door open, by the way, to come back and work for us in a part-time or in capacity. I think she has to wait for 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks, so she'll come back. Hopefully. Any questions?
So Dave and Mark, we're starting to get into the throes of, and I truly mean throes of our budget discussions for 2023 at the county level. And Janice provided us with a list of all of the requests that have come through from the various county departments. But there's a big blank on here for WCCH. And in order for us to make good decisions associated with county expenses and the financials, we need to get your input on what you're looking for 2023.
They requested. It's in their request.
I see it down here as a.
I just don't, yeah, I'll go up higher. They didn't give me their lowdown expenses and they just told me how much they needed from me.
Where is that shown?
Right above that, it says transfer to hospital.
I don't.
They haven't submitted their.
I don't have that on my copy here. Transfer from hospital. I see hospital.
So when they submit their budget to me, that'll get filled in, but basically this is the number I needed.
Okay. That's, all right. So is that reflected down here then?
This doesn't, no, this won't matter. At some point.
All right,
Well,
so it looks like you've asked for 10 million. 665.
Yes, for 10 million.
10 million. Is that given that what you've shared with us today, a $19.2 million loss for year end, is that accurate? That you're asking for 10 for 2023?
Well, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces here and all that are more than details, but you've got multiple lines moving. Because you've got the expense or loss rate at the hospital, which is trending down slow. A lot of those things aren't going to hit until later in the year, like the first quarter next year, when we expect to see it drop significantly. You've also got subsidies coming in this year, which clouds are kind of our true run rate. At this point, the 10.6 million is our estimate of funding needed through 2023 to keep the organization solvent. We continue with the turnaround plan.
Correct. So in September here, we were starting the budgeting process for the hospital. I did a projection based on for where we were through July with our expense run rates, the initiatives that we have sort of underway in time. And that's really what closes the gap between the 19 to 20 we talked about to get it down to a $10 million number for this year.
Sure.
As we go through the budget process, we'll continue to work on that and refine that, which then October, early November, we should have.
Right. The thing that concerns me, Mark, is that, we're going to have to appropriate a pretty good chunk of money from our fund balance to cover some of that expense. And we're getting close to where the well is running dry here. I mean, we have another 7 in there for fund balance, but we're already, getting to the point where it gets uncomfortable in terms of how much money we need to provide to the hospital. I'm looking for no surprises next year where you come back and say, oh, our improvement plan isn't as occurring as quickly as we thought. We need this much more. Because that could be very damaging for county finances. So if you give us a number, it needs to be the best number you can possibly come up with and include the impacts of your turnaround plan.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to approach this from a very conservative perspective. So we are going with conservative numbers, so we would not anticipate to be more than what we have at this point. There's always unforeseen things potentially that can come up. But even in what we're estimating as far as the impacts, I'll say erring towards the conservative side of the estimates.
I have a question. Is there any indications that the Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement rates will go up in the future?
Well, very gradually.
Very gradually.
Yeah, so right now, Medicare itself is looking at a 2 or 3% potential increase. The potential, the problem that we are going to potentially face is there's a low volume adjustment that adds about $650,000 to our inflation rates that is set to expire September 30th. There are indications that it potentially get renewed, but it hasn't been yet. If that doesn't get renewed, it'll actually offset any trend that we get. And actually, Haney's estimate for it is that we'll take about a $400,000 hit overall on our Medicare rates for next year, if that stays in effect. If that doesn't stay in effect, then we will have 200,000 additional.
Now, the question with all these rural hospitals in dire straits, do we expect the feds or the state to help out here pretty soon?
No, not unless we go and plead our case, which we're gonna do. Because we have to. I think Dan's spot on. And just so everybody understands, turning around a hospital typically takes 24 months in a movie. This is not something that happens.
Right.
It's not gonna happen. And then you overlay the fact that we're a public entity and everybody's unionized and civil service protections.
I understand.
And Dan has helped me understand this because this is my first foray in the government. Things just move at a glacial rate. So, I would just, to pile on, I guess, what Mark is saying, it's our best estimate, I think, at this point. Yeah, we're gonna go to the state and Becky and Brian and Rich and we're gonna ask. Significant ask of the state.
Sure.
But you can't bet on it. Exactly.
Oh, no.
That's, if it happens, that's a fantastic thing, we put on a runway.
Right.
But we have to take care of business ourselves, basically.
Right.
And not rely on somebody else. And you know how screwed the state is, the feds, and good Lord.
Oh, yeah.
With that, yeah.
True.
So, sorry.
That's okay, thank you.
Dan, is that answer your question?
Yes, and just to be sure, I'll go on record and say that I think you and, the hospital team are doing the right thing. I mean, you're taking a cold, hard look at what we have there to work with and making, some plans to make improvements. So, I'm confident that you can come up with a plan. However, there's that timing factor too in there, and just how much pain can we inflict on the taxpayers? Because this doesn't show, it shows state and federal, but there's another line down here that says county of Wyoming.
Yeah, I think, just to put it out there, the county needs to consider what programs and services it wants to provide to the residents of Wyoming County. Who will we care?
Right.
With a subsidy approaching over approaching $3 million a year, given what you just said. I don't know the answer to that. This group needs to talk about that.
Sure.
We just lost one OB, so just one. Dr. Malaya gets COVID, we have no OB coverage whatsoever. We're already struggling with anesthesia coverage. That's costing us $1.5 million. We are, pediatricians. And Dr. Dolanowski leaves, that leaves us one pediatrician, which you need for OB care. That's Dr. Canapora.
Well, I think, what the staff have, and Dawn, you've been here a long time, what we need, right, within this county in terms of services. So you've got the right people in the right positions.
But I think those are the conversations that, and quite frankly, when we go to the state, that's what they're going to be asking of us. What's your plan? Not to just go ahead and ask for money, but say, what have you done? I think the fact that the county set up and funded us $7 million for the end of the year, I think it's a huge show of support for this community.
Correct.
But they're going to want to see what else is on the table.
Sure.
So. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Anything else? Questions? Concerns? Okay, let's start. Yeah. Do see, starting with number 2, amended resolution. This is the other children. Contract for him to work part-time, it's 2 weeks a month. And we standard this, the amount not to exceed 260. Now practice for orthopedic surgeons is one of those areas that could be $20,000, $40,000. We did get some good preliminary news at the end of last week that his estimate for practice is going to be much below that. So hopefully we'll stay within the 260, but we just want to make sure we had some room to get in the contract so we could sign him up. He's ready to go. We can start advertising immediately. The guys work in rural areas and he's a home front guy, so it's a need. Let's see, number 3, then the resolution for the locals. Position of local spending coverage, increase the amount not to exceed 200,000, not to exceed 220,000. This is because we're still utilizing that, and the building is going to be beyond 200, correct? Okay. Number 4, amended resolution, UBM internal medicine, outpatient endocrine services. This is Dr. Oh, geez. I think we got me. How was that? She's our endocrinologist. From 79 to extend the term of the agreement through A122 to 7/31/23. Number 5, this is Garfunkel, and resolution, Garfunkel law, legal arrangements, increase contract amount additional $38,893, including invoices received services and for the period February 1st through May 31st.
I can't even write this one. Because you said you just got.
Got another 2,000 now.
Another 2,000, and I'm not at the board of managers. It came up in that meeting. So we bring it back probably next month, it's only 2,000 and change compared to. And he.
Number 6, amend resolution, option 360, solution LLC, extend the term through 5/6/22, 5/15/23, increase the amount, not to exceed $40,048 per year. This is a group that provides consulting services to our utilization review staff. When there's a question about the patient status of the patient or observation for and it's basically a phone call. It's a 24/7 service that we utilize. The difference between an inpatient and an observation patient can be multiple thousands of dollars, sometimes $5,000 or $6,000. So it's very important that you get your stats correct. Number 7, professional services contract. Negotiate professional services employment agreement, position required orthopedic services not to exceed $700,000 per year. This is another orthopedic surgeon. Gentleman in upstate New York, has worked for many years. It's to negotiate a potential contract with him. Not to hire him per se, but this is just to enter into negotiations with John. He's also told me, I told joint orthopod. Number 8, professional services contracts, negotiate professional services agreement by radiology services, $1,000 a year. This is to give the hospital a new way to look at potential. Professional services contract, building and account receivable management, and healthcare solutions, this is a consolidation from 3 building groups to 1. This is a group out of Buffalo, very large group. In addition to them, like home billing, coding, and credentialing at $400,000 per year, effective 1/23 through 12/24. And it's actually, that's overall savings of $107,000 over currently what we're doing. It's about 90 days to transition these groups. 10, professional services contract, charge master management through Greenware. Provide hospital charge master updates, price transparency, $91,000 per term, effective 10/1/22 through 11/30/23.
So this is basically a software package that helps you keep your charge master updated from both a CPT code perspective and a charge level perspective. As the codes come out, it automatically will update the codes, and it'll also give us pricing of all the hospitals within the area, how we sort of compare by price line with them. The other thing that this group does is there's a whole pricing transparency requirement for us on our website that we're working currently internally to try to manage. They will take over and manage all of that pricing transparency for us.
This is a best practice, basically. Right now, we have every manager who's got local services in the department updating their own charge master pricing, basically, lab test, X-ray, and stuff. And some are very good about it, some are not. When I started at Wyoming County, I learned that some years ago, we were charging $150 for a CAT scan. CAT scan is about $1,500, so our pricing wasn't updated. So this ensures that it's in real time updated, it's benchmarked versus other pricing in the region, is compliant with codes often change that the government accepts for billing, Medicare, Medicaid, and also all of the commercial payers. Make sure those are all updated. It's a best practice. Also, some of our payers pay a percentage of charges instead of yeah. So the more we can keep our charges current and optimized, it's a benefit to the organization. Number 11, men's salary schedule as follows. Abolish 1 FTE director maternity, women's health, abolish 1 director of surgical ICU position. These are being consolidated, Dawn is working on these. So it's part of our plans of restructuring nursing. Abolish 1 nursing supervisor per diem, nursing office, create 1 assistant director of nursing position. Salary at $118 per year. Abolish 1 FTE director of utilization review. And abolish 1 FTE director of quality. Cheryl, the abolish 1 FTE director of utilization review. The date on there should be 9/19. It should be 9/9. Let's see, man, salary schedule as follows. Abolish 1 FTE position assistant of PM. Abolish 1 FTE.
And then 2 through 12.
We vote on 5 separate.
I'll go for a motion for 2, 3, and 4, and 6 through 12. Supervisor Davis. Any questions on 2, 3, 4, 6 through 12? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 54. Approved. Number 5. Careful, these two. You gotta back together, that's for sure. Looking for a motion on that.
So moved.
I have a motion by Supervisor Grant. Any more questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Cheryl, I'm a no too.
Oh,
Mike.
Mike Roach.
Got it. Yep. We can, yep, because we're still under a state of emergency with New York State.
And so it still carries.
Go,
7-2.
721.
Okay, that carries. Is there anything else? One thing we didn't talk about, which we talked about with the treasurer earlier. That's just before the meeting, or before you came up. We're working under report.
Right, I'm still waiting on a single other report. I went through on Friday. The thing that's different with the single audit this year for 5 years is that having to do all the work on the HHS board filings for the money that the county, the hospital received. As far as COVID funding, they completed all of that work. They seem to be just working on the language of the actual report.
The comptroller question, or not comptroller?
No, the federal government has set a deadline by 9:30, and our auditors also need to come back and do any adjustments that were done since the drafts were received.
Well, the financial report is finalized. We took that to the board in July, and they gave us final, so I need to get a final of the actual audit.
We need the final audited 2021 statements for our auditors as soon as possible.
All right, that I can do.
The single audit goes into our single audit, which is filed separate.
Right, that's the piece.
That's the piece.
The single audit. We have not completed that report. But the full, the rest of the financial.
Those one thing. Further mentioned earlier is the healthcare bill.
Yeah, let me give you an update on where that stands. If you may recall, the state as part of the budget allowed for bonuses to pay healthcare workers and salary support personnel.
Pretty much everyone and their brother.
Just about.
Exactly.
So we had a deadline of Friday to get that in for our employees as well as contractors who work on our behalf. The state will also give us money to give them. And we were successful in getting the first window entered into the state system, although it kept on going down on us all day Friday. But my team was able to load that in for all of the employees in the county hospital and health department that are qualified and have submitted the self-attestations.
What about the jail?
There is nobody in jail that
You have nurses at the jail.
they don't qualify.
They don't, why not?
No, I don't believe they do. The one.
I mean, you could be a food service worker at the hospital and get a bonus,
Correct.
but you can't be a jail nurse and get a bonus.
Jail nurse is out of the health department.
Oh,
I'll double check that in, but I might be wrong, and if I am, I'll clarify that with you. But I don't believe they qualify within the definitions given to us by the state. And with that, I can tell you that the definitions given to us by the state changed 100 times.
they were very generous to begin with.
Yeah.
The list was
Let
huge.
me follow up on that.
Okay, what about the public health nurses that are with the health department?
So Laura reported to us last week that they were
They weren't.
They were not
That's
eligible.
what was given to us.
Yep, affiliated with a
You have to
hospital.
do direct patient care. So some of the people in our mental health unit do not do direct patient care. They're more or less a referral agency. So they did not qualify. And when Laura Lucci and I looked at her folks, it was our belief, based on the guidelines we got from the state, they didn't qualify. But I'll go back and double check that, because again, it's evolving. And again, this was one of 6 windows. So this is only the first of 6 opportunities that people have to submit for 2 of the 6 windows, $1,500 per window. So
In bonus.
in potential bonus.
Okay.
Shortage.
Sure.
Your shortage. Your direct care.
Okay, and when are those bonuses awarded?
Well, that's a good question. The state has told us that we have 30 days to pay the people once the state gives us the money, but the state hasn't given any restriction on how long it's going to take them to give us the money. So
So they're gonna issue the money to us first, and
Yes.
then we're gonna pay them out.
correct, that's the way it's currently set up. And there was a question about the initial report from the state was going to leave the taxation issue on our shoulders. We have to pay our portion of the payroll tax, and some of the healthcare providers pushed back at that to the state, and that changed. So as part of the funds that are going to be given to the various agencies and hospitals or whatever, we'll also true up the payroll portion of the taxes that the employer normally have to get. So,
And the other thing was that there were various levels of awards depending on the number of hours.
correct. So each individual employee has to make a personal decision as to which one of the windows they want to make application for. Because if they didn't work the maximum threshold hours in a particular window, it would not behoove them to apply. So, sure. So, and then they have to submit self-attestation forms to us in support of our report to the state. So if we report to the state on your behalf, for example, and you didn't submit an attestation form, your submission is.
There's a lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts and a lot of chasing people for attestations. So that's the update. The first one got in, 5 more to go.
Okay. Is there anything else for finance?
Just a comment or question. has it ever been thought or consideration of looking into a different attorney firm other than Garfunkel Wild? Has it been discussed with these gentlemen, looking into another firm other than Garfunkel Wild? Appreciate Mr. Thor bringing that up.
Right, and
But has it ever been talked about? Looking into another firm?
Syracuse.
Syracuse, just talking about that, we've already got a new firm. We're in Syracuse, and they're called Costello Cooney.
You did?
Yeah, we did that first month I was here. Right, you talked about that when we first got here.
Which we've used, the hospital has used it.
I'm reading that.
Well, the nice thing is they have the contracted rate with Wyoming County, which is much lower than Garfunkel. And they're full service, they do healthcare, litigation contracts, all that stuff. Okay.
Sorry.
But sometimes I see very low, it's hard to hear. Just turn this on.
Yeah. Long story. Joe, on a lot of the hospitals' resolutions, you'll see that Costello included is on there by name. And a lot of those. If that helps.
I was asked by outside people, it's a different comment. People love to watch some of these meetings here. And they cannot hear the hearing. If they're home watching it, they cannot hear.
We're also working on that, but
I brought it up to you
it's the
before.
acoustics in this room and it's technology and it's this, so we're working on that.
I mean, I have a poor hearing, I have a hard job hearing those two gentlemen up there myself.
Is there anything else? Right. Sure. Thank you all.
I